The punch scene where Sebastian hits Dean Powers, that was fun. That was kind of a return to what we've done before. I've done a lot of punch scenes, but it was fun with Ben Perkinson on set because his ability to move around with the camera led to it being it was more dynamic. It was a lot more, the impact of the punch was better felt than if you just put a tripod up in the right angle. We had to kind of rush it. So I was just focused on going through the motions over and over again. I remember I was really worried about hitting him in the face.
I've actually been punched in the face before in a movie, like twice actually, and those were real punches, and there's real blood everywhere. But thankfully for this one, I did not actually bleed anywhere.
That would have been bad. Glad that didn't happen. That's happened before in the movies. Thankfully it wasn't me that delivered the punch, so glad that I've kept that track record.
There's a lot of fake blood involved, and actually the fake blood it's kind of like a material that it actually kind of stings your like lips and nostrils. So that wasn't exactly pleasant. But doing that a lot and reacting to the punch it kind of hurt. I kind of got like almost whiplash, it felt like, but otherwise it was actually good fun. And I love action scenes so much. I try to put them in all my movies, and I wasn't really allowed to put any action scenes in Letterman because the script doesn't really call for it, the story doesn't really call for it. But I managed to sneak one in, and I was involved, and I'm just very lucky to be able to do that.
It was interesting seeing Luca acting. Because I so often, like, he's behind the camera, he's directing, he's writing, he's producing. He's not often acting because he has to handle the camera. So when we had the opportunity of involving another experienced cameraman, kind of looking at him and realizing how much he was thinking about every move, every expression. I think you'll find if you're on set that whenever Luca's acting, that's when we do the most takes, because any small expression change that he has, he'll just like, nope, stop, like, let's do it again. I didn't like this one thing that I did. He has, I think, the most developed idea of what he wants his movie to be, and so when he's acting, that leads to a lot of time being put into the smallest things, just to really iron it out and make sure it comes across as he wants.
That was a fun one to shoot because it's like all of a sudden like a bit of an action movie in the chase scene, and it was kind of like, I don't know how well it fit everything, but it was definitely fun to see. We touched on a lot of stuff in Letterman. And so luckily we were at school at like 8 o'clock at that point on a Friday night, and that was the only door that we could find that was open. So we were trying to like find a janitorial closet, but luckily this room was open. And so we grabbed the handle, yank it, and it's like, oh crap, it's unlocked. And so we had to make it look like we were coming from a different direction, because in the original chase, we run right by that door. And so we had to make sure that it wasn't in the shot, and we had to make sure that we could swing it so that everybody would think we were coming from a different direction. And so we come into that room, and we were having a guest director, Ben Perkinson, since Luca was actually in the scene and he couldn't film it. So Ben, it was kind of fun working with a different guy, it was just a different way of doing things. Everybody gets a little complacent when it's the same spiel over and over and over. If you've ever acted with Luca, it's like one more time for variety's sake. But Ben, he had a different way of saying everything, he had a different way of shooting everything. And so it was kind of fun, it was like interacting, it was like acting in a different movie entirely, even though we were still all in our own character. There's a lot of intricacy that comes across in that scene. It's pretty important. I think that's kind of when Sebastian realizes, oh crap, I've been a dick, I'm not free of guilt here. And I think it's an important scene, but it was a lot of fun to shoot.
I think the best scene for the viewer, in my opinion, is probably the whole scene where Sebastian's gone back to school after Felix has tried to kiss him, and there's that tension between Sebastian and Felix after they run away from the jocks, and they're in that little hallway where they're hiding behind the doors and they're both sitting down and talking to each other, and just the cinematography was really satisfying, seeing the dualism kind of going on screen. it explores their characters in much deeper ways, and you can really see Sebastian growing a lot in that moment. And maybe I'm just a little too focused on the character I played, but it's the crux of all these different relationships at their worst moment. You see Sebastian that he's really not with the jock friends anymore. You see Sebastian that he's not quite with Felix, because Felix hasn't, forgiven him, and Felix hasn't forgiven himself, and Sebastian's just realizing, I've made all these mistakes and I need to make amends. And so watching that scene and kind of realizing like this is the low point of Sebastian as a character, where's he going to go from here? That was really fun as a viewer.